Welcome to Ogles channel, thanks for watching today. Let's continue our journey to finish every single Game Boy and Game Boy Color game. And today we're going to focus on a game called Batman Return of the Joker. Now this is a direct sequel to Batman the video game on the Game Boy, which we've covered already. And this game here is going to be a complete departure from that game in pretty much every way possible. Like if you told me it's done by two completely different companies, I'd believe it wholeheartedly because it just doesn't even feel like the same game in any form or fashion. But this particular game did get moved up on our queue a good bit because Retro Ed UK requested it, and so naturally moved up on the queue, covered sooner than later. And there's a game that you want to see me cover sooner than later, let me know in the comments down below. And just like Return of the Joker, I'll move that game up on the queue and cover it as soon as I possibly can. But let's go and jump into Batman Return of the Joker. Now I always like to start the videos off looking at the box art for the game first. And the box art for Return of the Joker is a hauntingly good cover here. It has the Joker center stage, huge teeth there. I mean, looks just like the Joker, except his eyes have like the bat symbol in them. I mean, it's a really, really good depiction of the Joker here. And I'm sure it's from some comic book somewhere. I don't know which one it's from, but man, this is a really good image of the Joker. Now it's going to be the same cover as a NES game called Return of the Joker. However, they're going to be two completely different games. They're just simply borrowing the same cover here. And man, I just really love the cover. It's a great cover. But let's go and jump into the actual game. Now when you start the actual game up here, you have a very simple title screen. It just simply says the title of the game, start game or options, and there's really no animation here except for the little bat symbol. It's sort of you know, flying a little bit. And I mean, that's pretty cool, but I mean, it's nothing really special for a title screen. And also the background music only lasts for like 10 seconds and then it just goes silent. And so there's like no real theme song for the game, which is like really unusual because the soundtrack is one of the best aspects of this game in pretty much like every way, except for the title screen here. They just really missed the boat on giving us a great title song to like really pull us into the game. Now under the options category, you can choose easy, normal, or hard, and it was preset at normal, and so that's what we're going to complete the game on here, just simply the factory settings for the game. But let's go and jump into the first stage. Now this stage is called the sewers, and of course it takes place down in the sewers, as you would expect here. And the first thing you're going to notice is the controls in this game are they're just simply not great. Batman himself's a little bit on the floaty side as he's moving back and forth across the screen. The grappling hook, where you of course, you know, throw your hook shot up into the ceiling and swing back and forth, that's pretty hard to control as far as like when you're going to fly off from that, and also simply to just grip into the ceiling, getting your timing right on it. The hanging onto the walls is probably one of the best mechanics in the game, but even that, as you're trying to like jump off the wall and land on top of a platform, even that can get a little bit on the frustrating side, mainly due to the floatiness of Batman himself once you land. Now to fight in the game, when you come across enemies, if you have a weapon like the Batarang, it's not too bad because you of course just throw the Batarang out there, it hits them, but that's a very limited weapon. You have a very small amount of ammo on it when you find it, and so you really can't depend on that on any form or fashion. And so really your main weapon here is just simply going to be your fist, which of course is more like actual Batman. I know in the last Batman game he had like a gun, and it was actually a really fun gun. You get like upgrades and stuff like that in the game. A great mechanic for a game, not necessarily, you know, Batman oriented, but it was still a lot of fun. Just the fist fighting here, it's man, it just doesn't feel natural. And the enemies themselves, even when you hit them, it's like they just simply don't die a lot of the times, and they simply keep ramming at you, and you're almost certainly going to get hit on almost every single enemy encounter. And that gets a little bit on the annoying side, especially as you get like further into the game when the enemies are like twice your size and it takes like 5 or 6 hits to just simply kill. You're going to get hit almost every single enemy encounter. And so I'm not like a big fan of the combat either. But let's talk about some positives in the game since I'm sort of dogging the overall gameplay here. The sprites in the game are pretty fantastic. I love the way Batman looks here. The animation when he is swinging on the little grappling hook. The fighting animations, I mean, it's pretty darn good. The music in the background, phenomenal. The soundtrack for the sewers level is pretty top notch, as it's going to be throughout the entire game here. Even the sprites as far as like the background here, I like the way the sewer looks. It does look pretty darn good. Doesn't necessarily look like a Batman game, but it's still a good looking background for this. But let's go ahead and talk about how the sewer itself plays out. Now as you're going through here, you're going to of course fight off, you know, different bad guys who you encounter. I've already talked about the mechanics of that. But the worst mechanic of the sewer level is going to be the water itself. The water level is going to go up and go down and fluctuate in different places here. And if you get trapped in that water, it's almost like an instant death. And it's not because you just simply touch the water and die. It's like you get stuck in the water, and every like 2 seconds you have to take damage from that, and you get knocked back. And it's like once you hit the water, you're never going to get out of it. And it's just like a slow, painful death for Batman. And I guess it sort of makes sense. Like if you were Batman, you have all this, you know, garb on you, all these little inventions, these hardware mechanics, And of course, if you get into the water here, you're going to be pretty darn heavy. You're not going to be able to really swim. You're probably going to sink. And so I guess realistically, the water mechanics make pretty good sense in the game. But as far as like fun value, it does not make a lot for the fun value for the game itself. But the water level here, man, I'm just not a big fan of it. And combine that with the controls themselves that you're not used to yet, this makes for one of the most difficult levels in the game. But even though it's difficult, there are a few entertaining things about it here. Like for the hitboxes, like the hitboxes are pretty atrocious in this game. I mean, just look over here at this part right here. The enemy is just simply basically running into me, but keeps going, and I throw my grappling hook attack into him. Doesn't even phase him at all. So the hitboxes are pretty off inside the game. Also, when you come into this little part of the sewer here, if you look in the top part of the screen, you can actually see a little fella. Looks like he's shaking his rump at us, you know, really sort of mocking Batman. But when you jump up there, you realize he's just simply walking back and forth. But at first glance, it looks like this guy's like, you know, basically mooning Batman, which is fairly funny. But the sewer level itself, man, not my favorite. But the boss of the sewer level is pretty darn cool. He has an awesome name called Dark Claw, and I don't know if he's like a mutant or what he is, but he has these two giant claws on each hand, and he's trying to basically slice Batman up. And the battle itself is probably one of the easier boss battles inside the game. He's actually probably easier than some of the enemies you're going to actually just fight in normal levels. You can pretty much dodge like almost all of his attacks, and then just go in to punish him when you have the opportunity. It's a really darn easy fight, but it is one of the more fun fights as you're going to go. And the next level you're going to go into is called the Machine Shop, and this level here, once again, doesn't really look like a Batman level, but at least the backgrounds and sort of the level sprites themselves are well done. And as you're going through here, you start off with these giant columns that are coming down trying to squish you, and you have to time it like literally just perfect, otherwise you get trapped under a column, and it's very hard to get out once you get in there, and it's almost a instant death. Sort of like the water was in the first level. Once you sort of fall into the trap, it's pretty much over. And as you're going through here, they got little conveyor belts like a machine shop probably would. And there's one part here, like you jump down and there's little exploding blocks here, and you don't know that till you jump down the platform. Of course, you're naturally going to fall through it. And then look at the guy over here. Like, he's basically laughing at you after you died. It's like the game is literally mocking you for falling into their stupid little trap here. And I don't know, like part of you like hates it when it happens because you're like, that idiot over there laughing at me. But at the same time, you're like, I don't know, the game designed this fella right there to sort of mock you a little bit. That's enjoyable game design, at least from a troll perspective. It was also in this level I discovered something else about the hitboxes in the game. If you are too close to an enemy, your hitbox will also not hit them. So if you're too far from the enemy, or you're just simply at the edge of the enemy, your hitbox won't register. If you're too close to the enemy, the hitbox won't register. So you have to like literally have the perfect distance for your hitbox to register in the game. And I don't know. That is not good game design. Now the mini boss inside the game is going to be a giant tank with a little fella inside it, and fighting against him is not too bad. If you get your batarang out, you can take a lot of hits on him from a little bit of a distance, and you don't have to worry about getting hit. But outside of that, you have to pretty much time your hits and get them just perfect right on him in order for it to register. But he's not too bad of a mini boss, but really it doesn't like once again fit Batman. I mean, I don't think Batman's ever taken on anybody in a giant tank like this. And so has nothing to do with the Joker, at least thus far. Has nothing to do with Batman thus far in the game. It's a really, I don't know, it's just an odd thing. I'm wondering at some points, like, was this game like even designed as a Batman game? Or did they sort of stick Batman in toward the end? And that's a question that I don't know. That's just sort of my speculation here. Now, after you finish off the tank, your next obstacle is going to be these falling blocks that are coming down. And your first instinct is to try to jump through the blocks and try to, avoid them as you're continuing on. But that feat pretty much proves to be impossible. So your better bet is just simply to wait till all the blocks come down and then try to just jump across all the blocks. And if you fall down inside them, you can just simply jump your way back out. But right here, it seems like that would be really easy, but because of the wall mechanics here, as far as like jumping out of the hole, are a little bit off, a little bit tricky. I probably spent like 4 or 5 minutes just simply trying to get out of these little holes here. And I don't know, the controls of this game, they just were not natural for me in any way. And then we go against the boss level called the Shogun Warrior. And I don't believe he's in any sort of Batman comics. And now that I think about it, I don't think the Dark Claw is any sort of Batman comics either. And so this here is a Shogun Warrior. He's a samurai. And as you're going against him, he's pretty darn tough. But if you go in with enough health, you can just simply sort of get him in a corner here and you sort of wail away on him. And to me, that was the best bet. Because I tried to fight him normally for a little bit, and it just simply didn't go well. I died a few different times doing that. And so if I just sort of tried to get in there as close as possible, sort of stun damage him, and just keep on going at him, that was the only way I could defeat him. But he's a pretty tough boss. And once again, not really Batman sense, but at least the boss itself is a fairly cool looking design. Now stage 3 here is going to be the best stage as far as like looks like Batman. I mean, it has a little night scene here, you're on top of a train, got the little moon in the background. This looks like a Batman stage. Music is pretty great for this level as well, and you're fighting on top of the train and there's these enemies that are coming at you who are pretty much sort of formless in a way. No real features on them. They're coming at you here. And my best advice is just simply to jump over them, because if you try to attack them, you try to fight them, you're going to end up taking way more damage than you're going to get health out of the fight. And so, and there's so many of them too. My best bet is just simply to hop over them, try to time all your jumps right. And even the part where you're like inside the train for a little bit, if you can just make it through like one little section here, fighting off the enemies, you have an opportunity to get on top of the train, and from that point on, continue off the same mechanic of just avoiding pretty much everybody and rush straight to the end. Now when you get to the end of the train level, it's sort of a shame because it's like a really short level and it was the most Batman looking level here. You're going to fight against a new boss called a Foul Ball. And it's pretty much a robot baseball player. And once again, like if this is a Batman enemy out there, why would they choose this for the enemy for this particular game? DC Comics is so rich with its villains, and they could have chosen like anybody for the game, and they chose a robot baseball player. And so he basically swings his little bat around. He can do like little slide moves at you, and at first it's a little bit tricky, but then when you realize when he slides at you, if you simply jump up, take one hit at him, he gets stunned backwards. He's going to slide again. It's almost always his next move. Jump up, hit at him, he'll stun backwards, and you simply repeat that same move over and over and over, and he's defeated in no time. This is probably the easiest boss in the game, and I think it's simply because you can sort of bait out one particular move that's really easy to punish. But once again, a really weird boss, but overall, the level itself, probably the best level in the game. Now the final level is going to be called Limestone Caverns, and it's going to take place completely underground. And why the Joker's hiding out in a underground cavern, this game does not choose to tell us, and nor does it make any sense at all. But regardless, this is the Joker's final hideout here. And as you're going through the cavern, it opens up with a pretty cool little part here. A guy with a bazooka or a grenade launcher blows out the entire level, and it's a cool little opening scene. And of course you climb back up here, and all the enemies are going to fight against are pretty much these bazooka fellas, and they're not too bad because you can sort of get them in certain angles and whatnot, and you can take most of them out without like ever having to like really come face to face with them and worry about any form or fashion of damage. But as you're journeying through the level, you're going to get back to some more of your traditional, I guess, samurai enemies or your robot enemies here. And they're going to throw out their little projectiles at you. And they're pretty hard to defeat if you get into a one-to-one match with them. But I found out if you can usually just simply trigger the enemy and then either run past them or just simply encounter them a little bit closer, they'll jump backwards and then they're going to fall into a platform that can't reach you anymore. And you can generally continue through the level with a minimum combat. Truth be told, like I would say 90% of the enemies in this game I didn't even bother fighting against because the hitboxes were off, the combat was difficult, and it took a ton of hits to actually kill them. And so I really went through most of the game here as an avoiding Batman instead of a combative Batman. And it did work really well, at least for me. And then you finally get to the final boss in the game, who's going to be the Joker. But is the Joker really the final boss? Because at least for me, the Joker wouldn't have been that bad of a boss if it wasn't for this giant magnet at the top that was constantly pulling Batman up to the top of the level. And when you're at the top of the level, you're pretty much vulnerable to all of his little, projectile attacks. You really can't get down there to attack him. And so the magnet throws off the entire fight completely. And it goes from what could have been a pretty enjoyable boss fight to being one that was just really, really frustrating. And it took me many, many tries to actually finally finish this level. But the Joker himself has 2 stages, and there's not a lot of difference between the 2 of them. It's just simply going to be more aggressive in the second stage, especially with his projectiles. And so try to save as much health as you can in the first stage for the second part of the Joker who's coming up. But really, like I said, the main part or the main enemy in the stage is going to be that giant magnet because it just throws the entire fight off. Now when you do finish the game, you get a little bit of a epilogue, which basically tells that the Joker is not going to be put in jail. He's going to Arkham Asylum, and most likely he's going to escape again because he's done it many times in the past. But the citizens can simply hope in Gotham that it's not going to happen this time. But I mean, it's very, very telling that it's certainly going to happen again. It's sort of opening the game up if they want to do a sequel. And I know there are other Batman games on the Game Boy, but I'm not sure if there's going to be a direct sequel to this game or not. And so I guess we'll find out in a future video for that. And at that point, the credits do begin to roll up here, and you got a little image of Batman off to the side. The credits are rolling up, and it's a fine little ending scene here. But this is like the only animated scene we have in the entire game. and they probably could have done one of these between every level to try to make the story sort of make a cohesive story out of it. But regardless, at least we did get one image of Batman inside the game. But let's talk about the game as an overall. Now, I don't always compare games here, but since this is a sequel to the first Batman game on the Game Boy, they are night and day differences. The first game on the Game Boy, it really felt like a Batman game. All of the levels were designed from the ground up to be just like they were in the movies. The scenery felt like Batman, it looked like Batman. The character of Batman looked like a little bit of a, almost like the Ben Affleck Batman, even though I know it's like years and years apart. But he had a gun and whatnot, and the controls were really, really tight in that game. And it was just a great game as an overall. I had a blast in that particular game. The cutscenes were great, the little images were great, flying the Batwing through the skies, that was great, and everything, like I said, just lined up with the Batman lore. This game, really, nothing really lines up with Batman at all except for Batman himself. And yes, the moves are more traditional Batman as far as like punching instead of getting guns and upgrades like in the first game. But by taking that away, they took away a massive part of the fun factor and a massive part of the appeal as far as like gameplay wise for the game. And they replaced it all with simply poor hitboxes, almost impossible to kill enemies without you also getting hit, and just a overall not very solid or well constructed gameplay. Like I mentioned a few times in the video, this doesn't feel like a Batman game in any way, and I wouldn't really be surprised if it was just simply a game that was designed for a different franchise, and when the Batman movie came out, or I guess the first Batman game was so successful, they just simply changed the Batman sprite, put him in here, and didn't think fans would really notice. Because otherwise, why would all the enemies have literally nothing to do with the franchise at all? And even the Joker at the end, like, he's a little bit of a stretch as far as like what the Joker looks like, and the location of the Joker, nothing really matches up. And so the story for the game is a little bit off, the action or the gameplay of the game is a little bit off. The music for the game though, fantastic. The entire soundtrack, pretty much start to finish, minus the title screen there, is a great soundtrack, and you can probably load this up and just simply listen through it, and you're going to get some really upbeat, great songs. They have nothing to do with Batman, but they are really good songs in and of themselves. So where would I put this particular Batman game on a scale of 1 to 10? And really the only redeeming factors in this is going to be the music, the sprites of Batman, and maybe some of the sprites of some of the bosses, but the gameplay itself is really going to hold it back. I'd probably give this game a solid 3 or 4. We're going to go, we'll cut it in the middle. We're going to give it a 3.5 for Batman Return of the Joker. But what do you all think? Have you played Batman Return of the Joker? Let me know in the comments down below what your memories are of the game. Do you love the game? Do you hate the game? Let me know in the comments down below. If there's a game that you want to see me cover sooner than later, let me know the name of that game, and just like Return of the Joker, I'll move it up in the queue and cover it as soon as I possibly can. But if you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Check out my other videos listed up above. And as always, go out there, find a great game to play. Just simply have a great rest of the day.